Eve and Lily, I have a question for you. You've had, between the two of you, literally hundreds of people on your podcast. Do these 6 things sound like the type of things your guests have been saying on your podcast?
Oh, constantly. I mean, this is for people listening to this podcast. These themes are literally what you hear when you listen to NPE stories over and over again.
I was going to say yes, 100%.
When my mother left when I was 3, I was confused my entire childhood, wondering why a mom could leave her daughter. And I really believe that she kind of self-destructed in guilt. And I think that's why, she died 20 years after she had me, because she just could not cope. I think it's my best guess. It's hard to be mad at a dead person, but I don't think she could cope with the secret and how that felt.
I'm surprised. I guess I'm in the 2% from a single consensual sexual encounter. I didn't realize that before.
I would love to go through our podcast episodes as a sample population to see how those percentages match up.
Yeah, anyone listening out there who's doing research, I think there's a lot of research opportunities with these podcasts. Their instant response is, but what if it's a sexual assault? Well, 2 things about that. First, nobody needs to remind me that this can happen, because the whole reason I exist on planet Earth right now is because my 25-year-old genetic father sexually assaulted my teenage number. So yes, I am well aware that that happens. Nobody needs to remind me of that. There's just such a huge need for so much more education. I do want to note that podcasts and Facebook groups were the principal sources of NPE's information. So Eve and Lily, your podcasts, yet more validation of what you're doing and just how beneficial it is for so many people. And by the way, our article is a bit unique in that we're critiquing and assessing medical practices, and yet we are the people who are the recipients and impacted by those very same medical practices. I've read literally thousands of articles over the years. I cannot recall a single time of ever seeing an article like this. I've spoken to several colleagues recently who have even more medical literature knowledge than I do. They have never seen anything before. So there is a possibility we are literally the medical literature's first authors to ever do something like this. And if we are, that would be quite an accomplishment, quite an interesting thing. And one thing that was published in the year 2015 and is what we call a position statement. Actually, let me ask it for you. I've been living in a cave the last decade. Has anything happened in the realm of genetics and genetic testings over the last decade? Do you know?
Oh, only like 30 million Americans have taken a DNA test.
Only you can do it at home.
For like $39.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is a decade old. This needs to be updated like yesterday. So that's problem number 1. This is the American Academy of Pediatrics, the most important medical organization when it comes to healthcare for children in this country. And yeah, they got a statement that's a dozen years old. So anyway, those are my thoughts. What any comments from you 4?
I appreciate that they tried to suggest there could be a plan, that there should be a plan. It's like a very sneaky statement. I feel like it's very sneaky because because it's like, oh, no, it could happen. So make a plan. But the plan could be to continue lying. So,
It's
like,
Eve, it's good I've read a lot of statements over the years like this. Yeah, these things sound like they were written like by some sleazy used car salesman.
It's real loophole.
Actually, in all seriousness, think about it. A group of highly trained, highly educated, I'm sure well-intentioned people got together, but they come up with this. It needed to be better. I'll just say that. So anyway, I'll stop talking. Anybody else with a comment?
I just think this is the second one that is very wishy-washy as far as what do they really mean? What are they trying to say? It just feels like a legal statement to protect all angles.
Yeah. How do you reconcile those 2 things? Let's give this false history to a child and to a family about the single most important test. This is why I'm so just angry at some of these organizations. They did not think this out. This is, speaking as a healthcare professional, this is not thought out. This doesn't make sense. It's contradictory. It needs to be changed. family history, all these high-priced whiz-bang genetic tests that you're doing do not have clinical utility. And by the way, the ACMG is the American College of Medical Genetics and Medical Genomics. So that's straight from them. You have
Well,
to have a
and
family history.
and
So go
that's
ahead.
what that statement is what insurance companies use to deny paying
Mhm.
for genetic testing. If you don't
Mhm.
have a medical history, they can deny your claim to ask for genetic testing, which would help
Yes.
you learn your medical
Learn
history.
your genetic history.
Society of Genetics have statements about sudden cardiac arrest and death in children. And it says you need to have a genetic history. And anyway, it got to the point where I said, well, would you rather have a child die? And they responded back, that would be compelling evidence. And
Oh my
I just shook my head at that. And it just made me so mad. And I did find this quote. This was in an article about donor conception. But it says that just a family medical history all by itself, even if you haven't incurred harm, it is nevertheless bad. It says not all donor conceived individuals who remained uninformed about their conception's method are necessarily harmed. However, they are all treated wrongly when they are deprived of the ability to access information about their genetic origins. Stated succinctly, they can be wronged without being harmed. End quote. And I thought that was really good because so many people that I've spoken to in a genetic world are like, well, yeah, show me somebody who died, then I'll believe you. And it's like, no, this all by itself is treating us wrongly, even if we haven't died from a heart attack or something like that.
I ended up with a son who was in the hospital for a week with diabetic ketoacidosis. And had I known that not only did my biological father, he was a type 2 diabetic, but every one of his siblings, I've learned as I've met family, every one of his siblings, which I think there were 8 of them total, all were type 2 diabetics. And then of my new siblings that I have found, I have 4 of them who are type 2 diabetics as well. Another one that's pre-diabetic. Another one has hypertension. And just this last year, I was diagnosed as being pre-diabetic. So it's definitely something that would have been nice to know that ran so heavily in my family.
Yeah, speaking as someone who worked in the emergency room for many years, yes, I've treated diabetic ketoacidosis, which is, for listeners out there, it's a serious complication of
It was very
diabetes
scary.
that can be, and sadly for people has been, fatal.
Deal with. And that was huge for me growing up, thinking, I guess for all intents and purposes, I was white. And then realizing I have this entire, not only other half of a family, but a culture that I had never explored. I didn't know what to do with. I didn't know what it meant. I mean, I kind of felt like I was this 45-year-old who was like joining an ethnicity, which is bizarre to think about. It's like, I don't even know what that means. And, even I'm 7 years in and still trying to work through some of that. So it's even a mental health issue.
They issued a distinct newborn identification requirement for this nation's hospitals because there are so many medical errors involving newborns. They get the wrong medicine, get the wrong medication, the wrong procedure is done on them, all these things, and including the wrong discharge to the wrong family. We don't know how prevalent that is, but my worry is it is more prevalent than people realize. And when healthcare professionals follow the ASGHGs and these other organizations' recommendation of don't say anything, you are, in a very literal sense, risking letting a criminal walk free. Actually, my genetic father, he assaulted my mother. Guess what he did in the subsequent years? He assaulted additional young women, including other underage women. I mean, this is the hazards of healthcare professionals not bringing this up more, not exploring this more, not finding out more information.
Absolutely.
This article will be available for free for the next couple of months at the American Journal of Human Genetics. I have a link on the NPE Stories Facebook page. And if you email npestories@gmail.com and put PDF in the subject heading, I'm happy to send you the PDF of this article.